nominee for The Revenant and 4-time acting nominee for the Academy Awards. Please welcome Leonardo DiCaprio.
How difficult it will be. I was absolutely blind. But no, actually it's funny because I started developing this project before Birdman 5 years ago. I started doing the scouting location. 6 years ago I read the first draft written by Marx Smith. And then I said, well, I would like to co-write and work a little bit with you. And then kind of an early production started 5 years ago. And Leo and I talked in that time, and we were very excited to do the film. But then the finance of the project that Leo was obviously working a long time ago with Scorsese, The Wolf of Wall Street, came in, and he has to do it. At the times, the schedule didn't work, so we had to put on hold that project. So then I did Birdman, meanwhile, and then mixing Birdman came the project again, and luckily, you know, Leo and I again coincided, and then basically the times were back to back, but it was not planned. It was something that happened, and here I am, more old. we survived.
Yeah, like, just do Birdman. What the heck, I got the time. But I would like to talk about your first meetings. Tell me about the first conversation, Leo and Alejandro, that you had about the Revenant.
Yeah, the Revenant had been floating around for a while, but it really was, Alejandro was really the catalyst to do it for me. We had lots of conversations up by in my house, outdoor fireplace for hours and hours and hours, and it was interesting because I just saw something kind of in his eyes that he had this. There was a look in his eyes that he wanted to go into the elements, submerge himself deep in nature, and find the poetry of this story. This is a very, linear, straightforward story. It's a campfire legend, but there's something that existential that I thought Alejandro really wanted to bring to this, and it wasn't even something that he could articulate, but I know that was something that he almost wanted to create neo-realism or do a docudrama. He wanted to put ourselves into these situations and sort of extract the meaning as we were there. And of course, I've been a fan of his work for such a long period of time, and he just wanted to go down the heart of darkness, so to speak, and get on that boat and just search for answers. And it was a period of time where I said, you know what, I'm free, let's go for it, and yeah, it was a doozy.
It was definitely a doozy. That's the understatement of the year. But Alejandro, what was this like in going off of what Leonardo was saying about capturing the existentialism and this fire you had in your eye about this movie? What was it about this that made it such a dream project for you?
I think the fear of it. I think my eyes were just afraid. No, I think that, a project like this, wow. Have never happened to me. Classic.
Yeah, very much so. The action propelled the drama and the development of the character. It's the perseverance of this guy, and I really wanted to explore what it was like to push a narrative along without being incredibly articulate. So much of the work that I've done before, the character is a catalyst for driving the story along through words. I think I've done a lot of characters that have been very expressive and very wordy, and this was an opportunity. It was interesting, we had a Q&A in New York, and we had the honor of having the great Martin Scorsese moderate it, and he was talking to both of us about the movie, which was such an incredible honor. Both of us were kind of like, oh my God, Marty's asking us questions about it. But it was interesting because Alejandro said, I remember Marty he would always hand out DVDs. He handed out 3 DVDs. I think it was I Am Cuba and
the cranes are flying.
Right, and so much of the stuff that he said to him had influenced his style of filmmaking. And I remember him early on talking to me about silent movies and silent film acting, and that he felt, one of my strengths, so to speak, or one of the things he noticed was the ability to convey things without words. And so the challenge of taking on a character that has to push this narrative along with so little to say was something that, I remember Marty talking to me about, 15 years ago. So it was this weird sort of concentric circle that happened, and then being able to do this movie with Alejandro, where I think we consistently stripped away as much as we could of what Hugh Glass had to say. I think a lot of our script meeting was about me saying, "Can I just say less? Can I just please add out more and more lines?" Because I felt like anytime Hugh Glass sort of opened his mouth, it kind of needed to be like haiku. It needed to be just, the basics. He wasn't one to mince words. He's every one of the characters in this movie, including the bear. Everyone's just trying to survive, but in particular, Hugh Glass is an outsider. He's got a half Native American son, and he's trying to instill in his son the ability to be silent, to just blend into the background, not to be too ostentatious. That's how you survive in a harsh, lawless landscape like this. And so those same words that I think he teaches his son, and that harshness of those lessons that he's trying to give him, is the same lessons that he needs to learn for himself when he has nothing to draw upon and he's trying to survive amongst the elements. And somebody's very unique process. I've spoken a lot about this, but for all of us as actors, there was a big adaptation process from the onset. He asked us to do some things that we've never done before. We essentially rehearsed all day long. All day long was a rehearsal process, meticulously working with Chivo and the entire crew, very specific camera angles. But within that rehearsal process, we got to flesh out so much of, our character development. Talking to Chivo and Alejandro, did we capture this moment? Did we do this correctly? And then the last hour and a half was this frenetic pace, this frantic sort of hour and a half of trying to capture everything in natural light, and became this adrenaline boost. And it was like all that tension that you see up in the movie was because of this process. Every single day was panic filled. We all had to adjust to this, and but the ability to trust in somebody else so completely. This was a very difficult movie for all of us to do, and a lot of the actors, it was very difficult, but we were also exhilarated by the fact that we were trying something so unique. We knew we were doing something that, I have certainly never heard of a film being done in this process or being done like this. So we were all very, I don't know, it was an exciting, exhausting process, but we needed to completely give ourselves over to his process.
The flip side to that, Alejandro, is what did you learn as a director working with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy?
Well, I was very, very inspired and very, I will say, how can I say, propelled. They inspire me, and they push me to give myself the best I can, because they were giving that, and they didn't. What I'm saying is, sometimes when you have somebody with limitations, you have to adapt and have to work around those limitations. But with these guys, you don't have any limits, so you can try things like we did. Few people can do what they did, I have to say. First thing I will say is what I always say about actors or actresses is, first of all, the emotional baggage and the internal life that the person itself has. And I think, I couldn't ask better. I can feel that all what Leo and a guy like Tom are as a person. They are full with a lot of things besides the craft. Then obviously rhythm, rhythm is God.
Full of a lot of
Some of them you don't want to know. But you know what I'm talking about. The other thing is rhythm, that rhythm is God, and honestly in this specific method is more than anything. things. I mean, the rhythm in music. Without rhythm, you can't create. You cannot do nothing. And there's a certain rhythm and pace in this film that needs to be like a clock. And if you don't have that, you can't. And they have it like jazz players. And then the other thing was obviously the craft of the thing, and what I call the two brains. You have to have brain to know the character lines and our character movement. What you agree with Chivo, the cinematographer, that was dancing tango simultaneously and with 100 guys around. But the other brain, which is to be aware and present in the real moment, beyond what they have learned. And that's the most difficult thing, because it's like a double act, you know? And so all those things were required in this film, with the frantic kind of sensation that the light was going out, and any mistake will ruin the work of everybody and will screw months of work. So it was but the results is that you have, and you as an actor maybe will know, you have the advantage of having rehearsed things, then you know, and you have the time to discuss what is best, how we can achieve this better, not only in movement, but in lines or less lines, or what is the objective and how we can accomplish that objective, and what is this about. So you have that rehearse time and discussion time that honestly, I think in Hollywood has disappeared, you know, unfortunately, because budget. Actors sometimes arrive 30 minutes before and then they are shooting 2 hours later and nobody really read, and I think that's a mistake. And many directors complain that, oh, well, rehearsals kill the improvisation and the naturality and whatever. But I think this method has the beautiful thing that, yes, you have the rehearse benefit, but at the same time, the fact that it's only one take or two forever give you that adrenaline production that you need to be in fear, to be aware, as in a theater play. So you have the benefit of both things, and that shows in that. So we will benefit for all that. Difficult as hell.
That caliber, if you're fortunate enough to work with somebody of his diligence when it comes to authenticity. I remember talking to Jack Nicholson when we were doing Departed, and he said, you know what I love about working with Stanley is you don't need to think about anything. The guy's thought about every fucking thing. And you said, that's pretty good, but I didn't add the eyebrows, I can do it. But he said that, it frees you up as an actor because not only are you reacting to incredibly realistic scenarios and actors around you in an incredibly authentic set and all of this, but you're not within and without. You're not taking yourself away from the process of being in the moment because you're analyzing things that just don't seem right to you, and you don't need to stop and reorganize all that. He's thought of all of that. I mean, to sit there and listen to him talk about tiny little bits of black grease that aren't on one leg of a background actor's, leather pants, or the way the trees look, or the man was so incredibly meticulous about it was like painting, a master portrait. The guy had his canvas every single day, and he looked at every single detail of what was up on that frame.
Well, it is a work of art, and it shows. I mean,
about this sequence, and I was reading the script, and you read the screenplay. It's like Hugh Glass fights the bear. So what I do? I give him like a right hook, and I fight him. And then you don't really realize that it's not a fight at all. It's mauled, and it's like a giant cat throwing around like a ball of yarn around the forest. There's no fight. But what I think people have been talking about this sequence a lot, and rightfully so, because what I think he and Chivo have done is something very groundbreaking. It's almost like virtual reality. I keep saying it's like being this sort of voyeuristic insect that's floating around watching something that you shouldn't be watching. And I think there's so much thought that he put into this, 100 different, clips of bear attacks, taking away the human characteristics of an animal, which he's talked about a lot, how, every grizzly bear, it seems to be like, extra ferocious, and horses seem to be friendly to man. He made it raw and visceral. I mean, all the way down to the texture of the bear's skin. He wanted to make it grimier and dirtier, but also what he was able to achieve is, I always talk about in movies, the most underestimated thing is tension. You know, the ability to sit there as an audience and have tension, no matter how dramatic the circumstances of a narrative. If you're able to have tension, and the moments that to me are the most tense were the ones that they created, which were the moments of silence, where the bear is done, he's attacked, but you don't know whether it's going to come back. You don't know how I'm going to react. The breathing of this beast above my face, it's profound filmmaking, and rightfully so. I think it's, as the history of cinema unfolds, people are going to be talking about this sequence.
Yes.
Location, really, I mean, it was just all around us all the time, but this was another unique process for me, because every movie I do as much preparation as I can. You know, I had doctors on set, we had great, you know, mountain men, sort of guys that were nostalgic about the mountain men's life, that would help with everything from, you know, how we loaded guns to started fire to survival skills. We read as much as I could about the time period, but all that stuff kind of, it dissolved away. And this movie, through this process, he kind of forced us as actors, all of us, to really just rely on our instincts. Every day was just, it kind of was about survival and getting through the day. And you just drew upon other things, and it became about the fundamentals. And of course you want to convey these emotions and perpetuate the story, but it all just kind of felt so much more natural for us. And you know, how I separated myself at the end of the day, you know,
Your iPod with you or something?
It was just about like getting warm, really. I don't know. And then like having a good meal, and then going into hibernation and waking up the next day. It just became something different. Yeah, it was a doozy. Things I wouldn't do.
I don't remember, by the way.
Is there anything I would not do? Well, look, you know, I didn't get hurt making this movie at all. The truth of the matter is that, yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, we didn't get hurt because, you know, when you prepare meticulously like that, you think of every possible scenario, and thankfully we had an incredible crew that looked out for us, and I didn't, aside from a few flus, no. I mean, no, this was one of the, like I said, this was one of the most unique experiences all of us have ever had, and I think it's all been a giant blur to us that we're still waking up from, and we're going to come back and have fever dreams to last our experience.
Well, everyone, I'm sure will agree that as extraordinary as the movie was for you to make, that's as extraordinary as it was for us to watch.